There are a lot of strange things in this world, many that can't be explained. And there's a group of such items that are generally known as codices, or singularly as a codex. Things like the Voynich manuscripts and its close cousin in a cryptographic sense is the Codex Seraphinianus, drawn and written by Luigi Serafini and published in 1981. Purportedly a recent document, contemporary. Serafini himself says he can't read it and doesn't understand it. It's all made up, the language and the pictures. It's an easy out to go along with that. So in this episode, I'm delighted to read for you Chapter 8. Let's call it Words. It's appropriate. The Asemic writing is undecipherable. And as we will later see, it's a deliberate ruse. Because this thing is built like a scientific encyclopedia, and we can read it. So welcome to the Geonosis Project, and today we're reading Chapter 8 of Codex Seraphinianus. If you're familiar with the origin story, then skip ahead. If you don't know the story of the cat, then stick around and we'll introduce the codex to you, how it was derived, what it means, and where we go from here. Let's hear from Luigi himself in an interview.
Opus was a book he published in 1981, the Codex Seraphinianus. So mystifying, even he can't explain it. So if you were introducing yourself for the very first time to somebody and they said, "Oh, what's this? What's this book?" What do you tell them?
I smile. I say, okay. You like it? Okay.
You tell me.
Exactly.
From that early work, conceived when he was just 27, he became a cult rock star of the art world, celebrated by intellectuals and tattoo artists alike as something of a surrealist wizard, says curator Pietro Mercagliano.
He is something magical, something that appears and disappears, but his smile is always there, like the Cheshire Cat. And his art always has this odd part.
There are monsters, birds, and whatever the heck that is. Creatures so uncanny, it's as if they were beamed down to him.
Probably the most, I think, real possibility is that there was a spaceship. So some aliens sent me some message. That's one. The second possibility was my cat. The real possibility is that there was a spaceship. So some aliens sent me some message. That's one. The second possibility was my cat.
Your cat.
Exactly, was sleeping on my shoulder. So I simply received the dreams of my cat, and then so maybe it's the point of view of a cat. Who knows? That's the two possibilities: aliens or cat. The rest I don't know. It happened. It happened.
Perhaps the most alien of all is the language. It's 100% made up. The letters, everything.
The surprise was the way children are able to understand book more than me. So it's fantastic when I see children reading my book and explain to me, and I feel very...
But I feel like a child when I read your book.
Exactly.
That childlike whimsy has dashed off the pages and sprinted into Seraphini's home of nearly 40 years. Everywhere you look, there are references to book and
Still living
reflections of his
in
Rome
Rome.
neighborhood, just beside the
Parthenon.
Pantheon.
Well, that is an impressive cat. We've got no rational proof for aliens, but for a cat to sit on his shoulder for 2 years and channel this through Luigi, I certainly hope he's had it taxidermied if it's not still around. But then Rome does have a cat problem. They don't seem to have specific owners, so he may have come from a wizard or an alien. But let's not get caught up in that. When we analyze the structure of the entire document with AI, this is the output, just in pure formatting terms and structure. Here's what we keep seeing consistently: headings and repeated formatting, like a textbook. Catalogue layouts, grids of variants as if classifying types. Bullet lists that look like rules, properties, constraints, or steps. It has diagram logic, arrows, node graphs, and do-don't markings that behave like engineering notation. In other words, the codex isn't random doodling. It's organized like a reference manual, an encyclopedia. Yes, but encyclopedia with procedures. So the question becomes, if the text is intentionally unreadable, why keep the rigorous structure? One answer is art. Another is the structure is the message. It trains you to think in systems, taxonomy, constraints, not taxidermy like the cat, taxonomy, how you name things, transformations, whether or not you can sort, whether or not you can sound out the words is irrelevant to the pictures. Now I'm going to read one chapter from the latter third of the Codex. We believe through understanding this chapter we'll call it phonetics, or words, because it sets the scene for how to think about the Codex. I think it's the most relevant understanding we have, and it helps explain why we are where we are as a civilization today. So I'll translate it in the only honest way available by anchoring every claim to what's visible on the page. Entities, actions, constraints and diagrams, and then offer interpretations. You can agree, disagree, or roast it in the comments. Skepticism is allowed here. In fact, it's required, but please bring receipts. All right, let's open the Codex. Let's treat it like a machine that we haven't learned to operate yet. Page 1. New section. 2. New chapter. 3. Now we're starting to see the images. And we have an educated man, an academic. He's pointing to a column of symbols, hieroglyphs. They're on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side are his made-up words that are in the rest of the book. What he's demonstrating is the translation of hieroglyphs to phonetics, a version of the Rosetta Stone that has been used to decipher hieroglyphs for 200 years. Now, the academic has a needle attached to a rope that goes through his jacket, presumably through him, into the red liquid inside the Rosetta Stone. He is suggesting he's hooked in. He's got the beat of this thing. He understands it, so he can read it to you. It's a strange looking pointer. And as an introduction to this chapter, the suggestion that this will, can, and does happen, yet in a different format to what we're used to. Perhaps it's a suggestion that it is from a different civilization, because our Rosetta Stone is trilingual and in horizontal lines. So what happens when pictures, hieroglyphs, are translated into words, into phonetics? Let's go to page, I think it's page 4. We have a question mark that's fuzzy. And on the right we have a semicolon. So to read it, when you translate from pictographs to phonetics, your questions that are fuzzy and not clarified are pronounced. The questions are no longer warm and fuzzy. They are determined and regulated. So they're very clean, stiff balls, making up the semicolon. Here we have an exclamation mark that is segmented. A structured idea that's strong and well understood. Presented as pictures. When we translate it into phonetics, we turn it upside down and make a clown of it, and turn it into a silly question where it was a defined statement. Something like, the earth is flat, and we know it. I don't really subscribe to that, but it's an example. And then by changing it into phonetics, it turns into an endless upside down clown question. And it was a given. Now we have two balls with different colours on them. A column. So it's going to give us an answer, a determinative of something when it's a picture. Phonetically, it becomes quotes. So whatever people want to make up about what that statement meant as a picture is now up for grabs. It's up for who can be the most convincing about their statement. Fish hooks, glowing blue, a number of them, sitting, hanging, and to the right, co-joined question marks with the dot as a central feature. So what we have on the left are concepts and ideas presented in pictures, are concepts and ideas that can hook you. And they glow with interesting concepts when you translate it into phonetics. You're sticking these concepts together into a hard form that no longer is available for selection. You're now told how those hooks interact, and that they are in fact all connected and can be defined that way, whereas before they were independent. Here we have parentheses, so that red dot glowing like the sun, it's an understood concept mathematically and within physics. It has some thinner threads coming down off the parentheses to show that it has more meaning than just what's encapsulated there, and it extends into other realms. Is the conceptual message you get from pictures. They can take you into different places while keeping the information solid. Into phonetics, we get a backwards question mark with a fuzzy ball, so it's not matched. The question not only is backwards now, it doesn't match its dot. And the certainty dot of different colours is now floating around out there by itself. Undefined, unappreciated, and unused. Because when something is defined, you know how to use it or how to interact with it. Next, we have an exclamation mark. Once again, a known concept, a solid idea that can be halved, looked at, studied, understood, inside and out, and you can put them back together to reform the concept. Phonetically, that turns into a percentage. It turns into maybe this much of this part or this much of this part, and that line between the two circles shows separation, the two pipes. And now the concepts can't be co-joined. They can't be joined back together into forming that one beautiful concept. The phonetics puts a wall between them and defines them separately. And we have a page of scientific notation. When read in the wild, at the top here, and we see you reading it in the wild, per the left, ideas floating between two solid concepts. When we phoneticize it, we encapsulate it, take one of those ideas and maybe merge it with another, name it, it stops floating, it does one thing, and it's explained. Look at the depth that we lost by stepping away from pictures. That green rainbow is full of concepts that have been reduced to that one light globe element idea. Next we have the ideas constrained within tubes and processed. Now they can be replicated and taught, and replicated and taught. With meaning, their structured meaning. It's turned into a sign, like last gas. So all that complexity is now a sign with 3 glyphs on it, 3 letters. Unchangeable, it's now defined. The other one probably spins and interacts, and those shadowy, ghosty things come in and out. But now it's all static. Below that we see the chalkboard. We're going to teach you these words, and we're going to teach you how to read and what it means. And now the concept of all of those free-floating ideas that were capable of being distilled into the concept of the glyph you're seeing oozes out the bottom of the rainbow. It's colourful rhetoric that dribbles into slime. Bear with me. It starts to make sense. On the left we've got a fiery, multi-dynamic meeting. And in between dance smaller concepts, between the 2 exterior concepts that stabilize the whole situation for understanding. That's in a pictorial sense. Phonetically, it's put in a cage, given a letter or a phenome, and now it's fully constrained. It's lost its contact with the little ideas are trapped inside it, but they can't be expressed, they can't dangle on the string. Now we have a fiery concept, fire from both ends, dynamic meaning, and on the right it's turned into a stationary plant that's twisted and growing through itself in a grotesque way. All meaning's been lost, the fire's gone, and it's a ragged mess of its original self as a word or a language. Bouncing, happy concepts, energetic, thrilling, participatory, turn into bug-infested green rot when pictures turn into words. The blue, amorphous, dripping mass. A concept that's so malleable and so pliable and yet consistent and cohesive. Yet it can morph like an amoeba, attach itself to different situations, become part of something else. It's put in the ground, it's made into roots. It ain't going nowhere, and it ain't changing. And it's static, and it's dry and dirty. No blue goo there. We lost it when we went from pictures to words. A ball of string, endless opportunity for conceptual development. And it's begun. People can pull that off and make more letters. It can make hundreds. The concepts therein are turned into 3 letters, or 3 words, or 3 sounds. Once again, static. They got flies on them. They're really slowing things down, stifling creativity and potentiality. A colourful word, assisting itself and holding itself up, open to the air. It's engaging, it's interactive. It's beautiful. It's turned into long gobbledygook words that are then shrunk, lipsticks put on them, and all previous meaning has been disconnected and lost. A page to ensure the scientists know this is a scientific document, yet we can't read it. Glyphic writing, picture writing, which is the top writing, which is the book's writing, lifts ideas off the page. It gives it balloons and sends it flying with opportunity and delight. Phonetic fanaticism says, now we'll bring you back to earth. No more dreaming. Nice and gentle, we'll push you back so you can stay firmly on the ground. No more lofty ideas. Page of possible explanations, or a move to a different thematic ontology. And we do indeed. We see that when we write with our left hand, we smudge the page. So we must write phonetic sentences left to right. It's a rule. We write with ink. The ink is on a measured, graduated stand, and it has measured drops coming out of its reservoir. So now we have writing in ink puts you under time pressure, because the ink flows at a certain rate. If you write too slowly, you'll pull the ink. If you write too fast, you'll start to stutter the words. So it must be a controlled action when writing. Whereas with a pencil, it was freehand, any energy you wanted. A drop of ink on the page can be catastrophic. It's ruined the work. You can't undo that. You can't have that mistake with pencil or charcoal. When you write in ink, you bleed ink. And bleeding ink means losing money. So they take a long word that uses lots of ink and they squeeze it down to a smaller word to use less ink. The loss of meaning in just that step is huge, let alone the step going from the picture in the first place to the phonetic transliteration. When we look closer at pencil writing, we see inside the line left on the page, inside the line left on the page, we see pictures from the Akashic record. Fish. And the next one, people doing things. This is the nature of consciousness. Placing images onto the very medium of communication. They could be related or it could be about another topic. It depends on the writer and their conscious thoughts when they're writing. At the bottom we even see cars travelling around a road as part of the Akashic record. And then we go to ink. The bottom, and then we go to ink at the bottom, and now it's a speedway. Now it's flowing oil. Now it's cars speeding. There's no time to lay down an Akashic image. Everything is merged and flows into one. When we turn pictures into words, our words become dribble. Words enter your consciousness while you're sleeping and embed themselves in you, creating fractured ideas. Words trap themselves within you and they come back before you even speak them. Words keep you chained, muzzled, and caged. Words turn you into a clown. You say words. You thought they meant something, but they popped and disappeared, meaning nothing, leaving you the clown. I think this is what a lot of people see when they go to court, isn't it? Because they speak a different language in legalese. That is the end of the chapter. A warning about turning pictures into words. If you like this reading and you want to see more, leave a comment. If you have another version of events, leave a comment. This is all up for grabs, but there's plenty more to read, and it's 308 pages long, and this is about 20 of them, or less. So if someone would like to help me read it, let's give it a go. Thanks for being here. See you again soon.